Hello, my name is Harris Bard for Pond Life Aquatics. I'm a professional fish keeper with 20 years of experience in keeping fish, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how you can harvest your own botanicals for your fish tank, the benefits of them, how it can benefit your fish, your shrimp, and other species that you keep in your aquariums, and I'm going to be running a little experiment to show you which botanicals I collected today will release the most tannins over the course of 24 hours, which should give you a good indicator of which ones will give you the best tea stain in your aquariums at home, or the least, if that's what you want. Let's get into it. At around 7 AM, as I do most mornings, I decided to go for a walk with my dog to a local nature reserve. And what's ideal about this nature reserve is that it homes a lot of local oak trees. And oak is really ideal for botanical use in aquariums, just because it has a really beautiful little leaf structure, which is just pretty to look at, and also it has a strong leaf structure itself, which means it can be munched on by things like Botanicals without it breaking down too dramatically while being in the aquarium. It also has some added benefits of creating things like biofilm, which is really ideal for different species of fish. And I just collect brown, dried leaves off the ground, avoiding going immediately to the side of the path, just so I don't touch a load of dog wee. I am going to do some commentary throughout the videos that I did POV. I'm not stopping for stuff, but everything like on the floor here, in England we're really lucky that the vast majority of our trees are good for botanicals. This right here is a really beautiful young oak, so I'm just going to collect some of the leaves because they're small and lovely. One thing to be aware of while harvesting botanicals in this country is that when you are in a public space like a park, which is perfectly fine to collect botanicals in, you want to take a look at the base of the trees, and if there is a big X on it, then you do not want to be collecting leaves from those trees, or you want to be boiling them before use because it means they have had pesticide on them. So I would love to have fir needles, but they're really bad for your aquarium. But a bunch of oak leaves have been trapped up there, which is just great for you. Yeah, this is a great example of somewhere you can go foraging for botanicals. So I don't have my scissors on me or my gloves. What you can do with stinging nettles is where you've got this fresh green section here, you can cut that. Obviously wear gloves, otherwise you will get stung. Fresh nettle growth is actually excellent for things like shrimp. And also down here as well, we have some bracken fern. People aren't quite sure about the efficacy. Some ferns can be quite poisonous for fish, so maybe err on the side of caution. Now, I'm pretty sure this is a kind of birch, and it's got some really beautiful leaves on. What you don't want to be doing when you're foraging is like picking leaves off. This is obviously ready to come off, but you don't want to be taking them when they've still got like green on them. As much as they will look beautiful in your aquarium, they've got loads of sugar in them. They're only really harvest things that are on the floor. Otherwise, you'll put them into your aquarium, and the sugars can cause algae blooms and other bacterial issues. You want them where they are brown and dry, but not like mulching. We'll give these a couple. We'll grab a couple of these. Different leaf structures and different species of tree actually produce different tannic effects in water. So that was a dead twig. We've still got a couple of bits on, but you can see that at the base it's kind of crusty. So we've got some lovely leaf. That's like browned and dried out, and these would just be ideal. And you can even use some of the stem. So awesome. Lots of foraging with your botanicals is genuinely up to personal preference in this country. We are very lucky to have such an extensive range of botanicals that are just readily available to us. We've got some lovely dried out birch. See, these are much softer. These won't last very long. So for like me, although this is like quite pretty, if you're going to use stuff like this in your aquarium where it's like got a bit of a softer leaf structure, they're not going to last very long. You're only going to get a couple of weeks out of them. One thing to know about foraging in this country is that everyone has use of a mobile phone now.
And that means we will have access to something like Google Lens. So if you see a leaf that you think will look particularly beautiful in your aquarium, then you can literally just pull out your phone, point it at the leaf, hit Google Lens, and it will give you a 9 times out of 10 pretty accurate description of what leaf you're looking at. And if you type aquarium in next to it, it will give you an idea of whether or not it is safe to put in your aquariums. There's very few plants in this country that I found are particularly poisonous or bad for aquariums. You can even use things like bamboo, which a lot of people have in their gardens, and as you'll see later on, you can harvest from your friends and family's gardens if they do have it. And as long as you're careful, particularly when you're harvesting in places that have had pesticide, you can boil up pretty much any botanical you find in this country, and 9 times out of 10 you will be safe enough to then use it in your aquarium. The reason why I like to go to nature spaces, and also sometimes, as you'll see later, my customers' gardens, I know there's never been pesticides sprayed on those trees or on the plants that I'm going to get the botanicals from. So I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to inadvertently hurt my fish, and it just gives me the peace of mind to go forward with not having to worry, and also knowing that I'm giving my fish and my shrimp the best possible use case for botanicals in the aquarium themselves. So the main things I picked up on this morning walk were my oak leaves, and also these really beautiful little leaves which are from a field maple, which are really just a lovely thing that is really common in a lot of green spaces. Later on that day, I am in a customer's house, and they have this Japanese maple, which is also known as an Acer, and I just look around the base and see which leaves are dried out. I love Japanese maple just for the shape of the leaf. I think it looks really beautiful and really fits in with a lot of aquascaping needs. This is a particularly beautiful garden with a lot of different species of trees. As you can see, I am picking up some not completely browned off leaves in this clip, and that's because if you want to, you can pick whatever leaves you find, bring them home, and you can either put them in the oven for like an hour at a low setting, or you can just leave them out and they will dry over time. Now you can see here that I have found some sweet gum maple, and they have these really amazing dried out pods already on the stems, so I just picked them off, and they are great for shrimp. They have loads of biofilm on them when you put them in your aquarium, and shrimp just love it. Now here we have a dawn redwood, which is relatively common in the UK, and it has these amazing feathery leaves on them, and they're just gorgeous in aquariums. Now here's the real star of the show. These are alder cones from Black Alder. Yes, those alder cones that you spend £5 for a pack of 10 on in a lot of aquarium stores. You can just find them very easily for free. And as you can see, I'm pointing out at a black alder above me, which is just dropping all of these cones down to the floor. You can find these in loads of different nature spaces in the UK. I've found them in my local park before, but it just so happens that it is in this house as well.
So now that I've been out to collect the botanicals that I'm going to be using in my aquariums for this year, because the amount of botanicals I have collected and will continue to collect over the course of the next few days will literally last me until this time next year. That's how easy it is. I'm going to be using these plastic jars to put different species of botanical into them, and I'm going to fill them with water, and over the course of 24 hours I will show you what the water looks like before. Obviously it's going to be clear, and in 24 hours we'll see which botanical releases the most tannins. Stay tuned.
So we start off with the oak leaves, then we go on to the lovely yellow field maple, we have the redwood, we have our alder cones, Japanese maple or Acer, our sweet gum leaves, and our sweet gum pods. I filled all the jars up with slightly warm water just to give them a bit of a kick start, and as you can see, the alder was already beginning to change colour here, so we can probably deduce what's going to happen next. So up first we had the sweet gum, which had gone slightly yellow honeyish. The oak really hadn't changed all that much. We had the sweet maple leaves that were slightly coloured, the gold maple leaves that were less than that. The Japanese maple had slightly coloured up, but not too dramatically. The redwoods had barely changed at all. And then the alder cones were this beautiful tea-stained colour. So lining them up from left to right, left being the least tannic of redwood, and then you have your oak, your 3 different kinds of maple, going from the field maple to your Japanese Acer to your sweet gum, then our sweet gum pods giving these lovely honey colour, and our alder cones on the right.
So those are the results after 24 hours. As you saw and as you can see, alder cones really are the way to go if you want to get that deep tea stain. But just while I'm here, I do want to say that something about the sweet gum pods, if you do decide to use them as a tannin, they do have a very specific scent to them. It's actually really pleasant. It's like this almost sweet honeyish scent, which I'm not saying it's going to make your aquarium smell like honey, but it is rather interesting. I think something quite striking about the botanicals that I used and have shown. Yes, although alder cones do give the darkest tannin out of all of them, there is something quite nice about experimenting with different botanicals and seeing the different color of tannins released. Whereas the alder cones give a like dark brownish color, I always find that the sweet gum pods give more of a yellowish, almost honey-like color to them, which doesn't sound all that important, but when you're looking at an aquarium all the time and you have a preference of how your tea stain looks, you can actually alter that just based on your botanicals altogether. And although I didn't get some today, I found that using apple tree leaves, whether that be crab apples or regular Granny Smith, whatever, the leaves from apple trees also give that kind of yellowish tint that I find with sweet gums. So if you do enjoy that color, then absolutely hunt around, look for different things and figure out what works for you. Now, if you are wanting to do your own botanicals and you're worried about just doing the throw it in method, which I usually do, I'll be honest, I'm going to talk you through how to quickly boil off your botanicals if you are concerned about that now.
So for this demonstration, I'm actually going to be boiling off some nettles. So you literally just want to get some water in a pot, bring the water up to a boil, and then for nettles, you literally just put them in, but this is the same for pretty much every single botanical, it's just the boiling time is different. For nettles, you are going to boil them for literally 2 to 3 minutes, and then you're going to put them directly into a cold water bowl. With some botanicals, like alder cones, you can go 5 to 6 minutes. I've seen places online recommend 5 to 10, and that's literally just to denature any pesticides that may be on trees. With nettles, you then squeeze it into a ball. Trust me, you want to squeeze it into a ball, otherwise it will just disintegrate. And you can put it straight into your shrimp or fish tank, and you're good to go.
One thing to say, if you do decide to boil off your alder cones, you will release a load of tannins into the water. Now, this can be a really useful thing for when you first want to start out a blackwater aquarium, particularly if you want to kickstart it rather than having to wait a few days. As I've articulated on this channel, I am far from patient. So what you can actually do with alder cones is, if you know that you have collected them from a place that hasn't used pesticides, you can boil them up in the water, let the water then cool down, and you can add that water directly to your aquarium. Now, I wouldn't use 100% water from boiled alder cones to add directly to your aquarium. That might lower your pH just a little bit too much and might give you a little bit too much of a tea stain initially. But it is a really good way of kickstarting your blackwater aquarium at home.
Just to give you a quick rundown of some of the benefits of putting botanicals into your aquarium themselves, what botanicals actually do is they release tannins, obviously, but the way they work is they release tannic acid into your aquarium, which lowers the pH, softening the water, and is hugely beneficial to a lot of species that we tend to keep in modern day aquaria. Personally, I keep a lot of different tetras and shrimp, and they are all from different areas of the world that have a lot of leaf litter and a lot of tannins in their water naturally. And what I found was, when keeping these species, as soon as you start to give them some of that tannic acid, they start behaving in much more natural and happy ways. I've personally been keeping Bentosi tetra for a long time now, and as you can see in this shot, there is some leaf litter that I should probably clear out at this point. But when I started using Botanicals again in this particular aquarium, which I'm probably going to take down at some point, they just started behaving in such a better and happier way. I've also found that when I give shrimp in particular alder cones or sweet gum cones, the biofilm that builds up on them is just so beneficial to them. I find that they tend to breed a lot more, I find that they tend to show off their colours a lot more, and just in general, everything in the tank is much happier. Now, when I first started using Botanicals, I was actually keeping a super high-tech aquarium at the time. I was having lots of plants in it that needed a lot of light, and I was injecting CO2 quite heavily, but I was keeping a variety of Rasbora called Mosquito Rasbora, and I was trying to get them to breed. So I started adding in a load of Botanicals, but I wanted to keep my water crystal clear to keep my plants happy. So what I found out at this time was that if you use silicates or things like Purigen to remove the tannins from the water itself, it actually doesn't affect the tannic acid levels that they leave behind. So therefore, you can have all of the benefits of Botanicals without any of the tea stain, if that's what you want.
Now, that's everything I wanted to cover about Botanicals today. There is still plenty more I could discuss. I could give more use cases. I could go through specific leaves that if you want to use them, you have to boil them for longer. But there is loads of resources online, and I do want to say thank you in particular to ucaps.org, which is where I learned a lot about picking Botanicals over the years. Not only that, I've learned just from experience from working around ponds and doing trial and error methods in my own aquariums at home. And I've also learned a lot from watching YouTube videos and reading Practical Fish Keeping magazine. Botanicals are a part of the fish keeping world, which I personally really love to use. I think the benefits to your fish and your inverts are invaluable. And there's so many different ways of using them in your aquariums, even in just an aquascaping manner, to get a really beautiful, natural looking effect. And it also just helps mimic the natural world, which I feel like for a lot of aquascapers, that's what we want to be achieving. If there's anything in this video that you feel like I've missed out on or you want me to discuss, then please feel free to drop a comment below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Or if I feel like it needs an update video, then I will more than happily make a few more videos about Botanicals. As you can probably tell, I've loved making this one. If you want to start using Botanicals in your aquarium, but for whatever reason you don't want to go out and harvest your own, then for a very limited time only on the pondlifeaquatics.com website, I am going to be putting up items for free of Botanicals, which are Botanicals that I have collected in my local area. Now, big disclaimer, if you are going to use these, please boil them before you do. I am not held responsible for anyone who uses these in their aquarium without due diligence. I personally don't, but I take that risk upon myself, and I'm not willing to take that risk for everyone else. So if you just pay for the postage and packaging, I will more than happily send out small pots of Botanicals to whoever wants them. I'll start off with a small batch just in case I get loads of orders in, but I highly doubt it. I just want to encourage more people to be using Botanicals in their aquariums because I think it is a genuinely beneficial thing to be doing in the industry. If you liked watching this video and enjoy watching aquarium content, then please subscribe to the channel. I release videos every Sunday. Feels pretty good to be able to say that now. And I just wanted to say a quick thank you for all the support people have given me over the past month. I didn't expect to get nearly as good a reception on the videos that I have, and I just really appreciate it. So I'll see you again next week for this pond life.